Well, everyone, this is Tim Picciott, the Liberty Advisor, and as we are talking right now, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is down almost 1,000 points. I think it's hanging in there right around 998 right now. And one of the reasons for this is, does bad news finally mean bad news? What we've seen really the past 2 weeks and probably really the past decade is that every time there's been bad news, it's actually meant that there's good news, because the bad news means that the Federal Reserve and other central banks are going to keep printing more and more money. However, do you get to a certain point where there's almost too much bad news, where the bad news can really start to overwhelm the system? So we're really trying to get this delicate balance of, all right, the market wants bad news, but they don't want news that's so bad that it could, send the entire world into a global depression. So that's really what we are battling right now. Now here on World Alternative Media, we've talked several times, and actually before I even joined WAM, this is a point that I belabored many times. I did make a video the month Trump got into office, January 2017, called The Trump Effect and Why Good News is Bad News. So I'm not going to belabor that point. I'll link that down below. Also, just want to point out I am coming back from Acapulco, gave a speech on the TDV investment stage, closed it out there. And that was really what I went through, a whole PowerPoint of just all the data, whereas a lot of these I'm just more or less kind of winging it and just going off knowledge that I already have. But if you guys want to have, the, hey, Tim Picciott just spent a ton of time piecing all the information, all the data together, and it's all succinct and there's no tangents or rambling on, that's the video you're going to want to watch. We'll have that one linked down below, and that will be posted on WAM shortly. But yeah, also, we are shadow banned over here, so not everything we see makes it out. So, I'd also invite you guys to check out the Tim Picciott, the Liberty Advisor page as well. But what is going on right now in the stock market? So we have major companies. The ones that are going to be most affected are going to be companies like Amazon, Logitech, also Shopify. Apple is another one. Now, right now, there is a big worry that the contagion, not even just the virus contagion, but the contagion of the fallout in China is going to spread to other places of the world. Because if you think about it, all the manufacturing that gets done in China, really we have, when you take a look at it, it's a global economy and really global kind of Ponzi scheme. And if there's any one leg of that Ponzi scheme that's not able to fully get up to its potential to keep this whole ship afloat, then, it could spell big trouble for the broader market. And I think maybe that's what people are realizing what's going on. Now, there is a BBC article that I read just before we went on, and it says the Chinese Association of Small and Medium Enterprises said around 60% could cover regular payments. They're talking about Chinese small business owners, regular payments for 1 or 2 months before running out of cash. And then they said only 10% of respondents said that they could hold out 6 months or longer. At the same time, the industry group said that nearly 60% of the enterprises surveyed have resumed work. So, I guess another way of putting that is 40% of those companies aren't back at work. I'm sure there's entire provinces, especially in Wuhan, where everyone is basically just shut down. And so that's going to have ripple effects where all of a sudden the business owners, if they can't afford to make payroll, and then they have to, save their own butts, so they've got to then shut down their business or go bankrupt. And then it just becomes, well, what happens after that? Does the Chinese government then just lend tons of credit out to these companies so that way they can stay afloat? But then if there's credit, then it needs to be paid back, and then it's just, like this gigantic albatross or weight around these companies that would then affect future growth. And so all these factors are really sort of coalescing together. We also have from the article, the car sales in China fall 92% as the coronavirus hits. And I guess the real, $800 trillion question here, and maybe that's, what the next bailout's going to be, is that, does this money printing, does it actually equal good news to the stock market? Or are we in such bad news with what could be happening that, this could be the start of things to come? But, I will say that as much as I pay attention to this stuff, I have no idea. Anyone that tells you they have an idea, they've probably been wrong for the past 10 years or 12 years or who knows. But, I have been pretty accurate the entire time, was running the endowment fund that lost the least amount of money in 2008. Basically called everything that happened, with Trump winning and then the subsequent fallout and rise of the stock market with that. And now what I see happening is a situation where I don't know what's happening. And so I have an investment thesis where basically my clients are protected, and how we're doing that, and we made a bunch of money last year, how we're doing that is we have put options on some of these big averages. And so when the market goes down, those put options increase in value. If you don't know what a put option is, you should not be out there searching it and trying to do this yourself. Go seek your own financial advisor if you don't know one. I happen to know a guy. But this is a strategy that we've been running since about September of 2018. So when October through December, when everything was going down, our clients only lost a tiny bit of money, like really low single-digit percentages. And then when everything went right back up, most clients went up about 25% last year. We're not running a fund, so I can't give exact numbers of how much they went up, and that's not including any gold, which is also up pretty big right now too. I think last time I checked, it was like 1674 or something right around there. Silver, hanging in around 18 bucks. So that's gone up quite a bit as well. But getting back to the strategy, it sort of works like homeowners insurance. So if your market, no one wants to, no one hopes that their house burns down, but if it does, your insurance then kicks in and rebuilds your house. And so, not necessarily anyone hopes that the market goes down unless they're shorting it or they're just like a nihilist or something. But if it does go down, then we then use the put options as liquidity to then have a pile of cash to then go in and buy things that got just absolutely wrecked. Because I do think that the system of B powers of B cannot allow the market to go down for any extended period of time, because everything coincides together, whether it's the baby boomers retiring and needing to downsize, whether it's all the pension funds from the said baby boomers that are now retiring. And so they can't afford to have any real major drawdown ever, because everything is just in this heightened state of basically a gigantic bubble and a gigantic Ponzi scheme. And maybe another thing that's going on is that, it's not only the communists that we're worried about. In China, so my daughter is home today, so a little sick, so making sure that she's okay. So we're going to make sure that we're going to keep this video short. But the other communist we have to worry about is Bernie Sanders. He's been absolutely cleaning up in the polls. I mean, at least that's when they're not, or I guess the primaries and the caucuses. And I mean, I still think they're going to steal from him, and I'm not, holding hopes out that they won't steal from him, and I don't really care either way. I think it just illustrates what's going on. I mean, they're going to want to sneak in their CIA asset, Pete Buttigieg. But with Bernie Sanders, as he's, winning more and more of these primaries and caucuses, then all of a sudden, then I think the market then looks upon that negatively. And then when the market looks upon that negatively, then there's less of a chance of Trump winning. So it kind of creates this whole feedback loop that as the market gets worse, then the one thing Trump can hang his hat on all of a sudden now isn't there anymore. And it just is going to create this situation where now it's going to create the self-fulfilling prophecy of having somebody in there like a Bernie Sanders. Now, switching gears to, from the stock market to the bond market, we have 10-year Treasury yield falls to 3-year low on coronavirus fears, and the 30-year rate hits record low. I guess that's good for me because I am building a home right now and told them a few months ago that I didn't want to lock in the rate. And, Chi-Chi, my mortgage consultant, tried telling me how interest rates work. And I told her, listen, dear, you don't need to tell me how interest rates work. It's sort of my main deal. But the bond market is typically regarded as a smarter market than the overall stock market. The bond market and stock market had a dichotomy and divergence probably going back at least the past couple of years. And so why are the smarter money people saying that something bad's going on while people are still being optimistic in the stock market? Or I guess they were optimistic in the stock market. And so if you've been hearing me talk about this, for a while, I'm not painting doom and gloom. I'm not really worried at all about this. I'm not worried about it all for my clients. I am worried a little bit about counterparty risk. So, I'll need to manage the options for that. But in terms of, am I sleeping well at night? Yes. Are my clients sleeping well at night? Yes. I hardly ever get any questions about what's going on because they know that they're in good hands over here, and they know that I have a 11-year track record of being able to help protect people, because I need to sleep with myself at night. I need to know that I'm doing the right thing. And right now, I'm pleading now. If you're gonna try to give myself a chance at some point, do it now before things go down. I mean, we have a strategy right now that it protects against a market crash, but then will also help protect your purchasing power in the event that the market keeps going up. And there's a very good chance. I think the chance of it going up 50%, even though here we are, saying Dow is down 1,000 points. I think the chance of it going up 50 is just as good as the chance of it going down 50, but it's all because it's been artificially manipulated. Please check out my Anarchapulco speech. I got into a little tiff with the organizer, and so I wasn't going to release it, but since she sort of pissed me off, I am releasing it. So that speech was absolute fire. It will be linked below. And please check out my page as well, Tim Picciott, the Liberty Advisor, because not everything makes it on World Alternative Media. Probably 2/3 of my stuff hasn't made it onto WAM because obviously, I've been pumping stuff out for 3.5, 4 years and only joined relatively recently. But anyways, I'm Tim Picciott, the Liberty Advisor, also with World Alternative Media, where find the truth, be the change.